Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on the fire danger chart, we've got high fire danger now kind of diminishing a little bit back here over in the northwest, but some areas of extreme showing up now in the red shaded areas there, in toward, especially around Tanana, and then back up to the northeast there in the hills north of Fairbanks, and a couple of spots out there toward the Selawik and Noatak Valley areas. Otherwise, no fire danger, of course, to the north or to the south, staying pretty good as compared to what it could be this time of year. And on the satellite today, you can see clouds plunging southward, being driven southward by northerly winds, both at surface and aloft, especially a loft northerly jet stream dropping southward. But that's spreading clouds down south of the Brooks Range here and across the Selawik, Kobuk Valley areas, Kotzebue Sound, and spreading across Seward Peninsula. Thunderstorms breaking out along the outer edge of this line this afternoon and back through these clouds, gradually building up, mostly over the eastern interior, seeing the lightning strikes during the late morning into the early afternoon hours, gradually trying to expand westward there along the Alaska Range, possibly into the Kuskokwim Valley later today and this evening. Batch of clouds out here over the southeast Bering Sea into the eastern Aleutians. Moisture sliding northeastward ahead of a frontal system, bringing some rain throughout the day today to Unalaska, the Fox Islands, Nikolsky area. Just clouds, maybe an isolated shower on the Pacific side of the peninsula around Sand Point, but really not much moisture at all there for the peninsula, mostly affecting just the Fox Islands. Dry conditions, but clouds, maybe some patchy fog for the central and western Aleutians. Definitely was fog today around St. George Island, but visibility is generally a mile or better, and fair and dry conditions all the way up to the Bering Strait today. And sunshine here, southern Alaska, temperatures 60s, rising into the lower 70s, 72 there at Big Lake today, was outdone by 74 at Thunderbird Falls. And we had some sunshine into the Copper River Basin, but again, the convection building there. And this batch of moisture, having come out of Canada from the northeast there, brought rain over the northern panhandle today, with areas near and just east of Yakutat picking up about 1/3 of an inch during the day today. Haines picked up 1/2 an inch of rain during the 6-hour period here ending at 3 p.m. Some pretty good rainfall amounts through that area, 1/4 of an inch at Skagway. Otherwise, showers a lot more scattered down to the south, with anywhere from 5 to maybe 1/1500ths of an inch falling today there. So the heaviest rain back up here for sure. And looking at the chart, here's the thunderstorms developing over the eastern interior, trying to progress back to the west along that trough there. But sunshine, nice day today, light winds, except around Bethel, seeing gusts 35 miles an hour out of the northwest. But lighter winds down across Bristol Bay into Kodiak Island. Starting to see some clouds build up around Kodiak Island there, lower clouds, maybe some fog. That might affect the area tonight and into early tomorrow morning. But the rain over the northern panhandle here from the Yukon, Skagway, becoming showery on down to the south. Weak high pressure, basically high pressure over the Gulf of Alaska, Northeast Pacific, and another stronger center out here over the northwest Bering Sea, ridging southward across the western and central Aleutians, and the rain over the Fox Islands today in conjunction with this front, bringing some gusty winds as well, but nothing too serious. Otherwise, just low clouds and fog here. Alaska Peninsula over toward the Pribilofs, up toward the St. Lawrence Island area, and snow falling today with winds gusting 35 to 40 miles an hour along the central and eastern Arctic coast out of the west, and then warmer temperatures back here to the west, rain mixed with snow, and just some light rain falling Point Lay on down toward Cape Lisburne area, very light amounts there. Heavier stuff back here to the east, that's expected to continue and drop southward overnight tonight. And in fact, at 10 p.m. tonight, a winter storm warning kicks in for the eastern Brooks Range area that'll remain out until 4 p.m. Monday, the way it looks at this point in time. And looking for winds gusting as high as 50 miles an hour for the northeast Brooks Range and eastern North Slope with those winds gusting as high as 50 miles an hour. Look for 6 to 12 inches of new snow to fall, mostly east of Adigan Pass there. Of course, the higher elevations of the Brooks Range will see the heaviest amounts as well. Much lighter amounts back to the west and also out toward the coastline. 3 to 5 inches, or up to 3 inches, I believe, in the forecast winter weather advisory for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast there. That zone including Kaktovik and Barter Island in that zone. Dead Horse and Nuiqsut and Prudhoe Bay, they're out of it. They're not in the advisory zone there. But there will be snow and wind there tonight, just not as strong as the areas to your southeast and east. Otherwise, for tonight, diminishing showers, really diminishing here, especially after midnight along the Alaska Range, and fair skies, variable clouds, low clouds and fog, pretty widespread out over the Bering Sea, especially the central and southern Bering Sea, and still a risk of some rain here. Actually expanding over to possibly clipping Atka Island with some light threat of some moisture there tonight, and also some moisture trying to edge in toward the Shimya area with this strong ridge of high pressure here, holding that back to the west and sending it up to the north and northwest. Southeast coast, rain continues. Northern Panhandle with scattered showers on down to the south, drying out for the North Gulf Coast, or remaining dry for the North Gulf Coast. Watch out for some low clouds and fog developing here over the Gulf of Alaska, maybe some showers or light drizzle as well. Now it'll begin to encroach possibly in toward Kodiak Island and maybe into the Barrens, possibly Prince William Sound. And then for the forecast tomorrow, again, the winter storm warning out for the eastern Brooks Range with winds gusting to 50 miles an hour out of the west, northwest, and look for winds 25 to 35, eastern Arctic coast, maybe gusts of 40, 45 miles an hour over there on the extreme east side. Better conditions back to the west, drier, less wind, but sunshine here, mostly sunny I'll call it, partly to mostly sunny from the Noatak, Selawik, Kobuk valleys, southward all the way into northern Bristol Bay, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Mostly sunny day possible for Nunivak Island there with north to northeast wind flow. Low clouds and fog, though, for the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island with a chance of drizzle. And still mostly cloudy, chance of showers there for the southeast coast, still under the influence of some upper level troughing that's actually pulled a little bit farther to the east there into Canada, back up to the Yukon. But still a chance of showers lingers into tomorrow and actually for the next couple of days. This system now pulling off to the southeast, so leaving behind maybe a risk of an isolated shower for the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. And the outlook for Monday, that system out to the west slides southward there with this high pressure area retrograding back to the west. And that makes for some easterly flow, but light winds, dry conditions, low clouds, fog anywhere over the Bering Sea, IFR conditions, until you get up toward the Pribilofs, and then from there you get into some clear skies with northeast winds pushing that cloud deck even past Nunivak Island, mostly sunny from Koryak, right up into the central interior. Moderate showers possible North Gulf Coast, eastern Copper River Basin, showers across the 40-mile country. Snow continues, but winds much lighter now for the eastern Arctic coastal areas. Drier also, especially in the afternoon. Look for some sunshine to break out over the Panhandle. Lows for tonight, upper 20s to near 30, North Slope and Arctic coast. 30s, Kotzebue Sound, 40s over the interior to near 50 south central Alaska, 40 for the Aleutians and 40s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow, 65 to 70 again, much like today for the Susitna-Matanuska Valley. Southwest interior, 65 to 70 into the McGrath area. Near 60, upper Yukon Valley. Brooks Range, 30s, lower 30s out toward the Arctic coast. Highs in the 50s for the Panhandle. And the lows, follow that up with lows in the mid to upper 40s there for the southeast coast. 45 to 50 southern Alaska here, mid 40s Bristol Bay, lower 40s Yukon Delta. 20s for the North Slope, highs back into the 60s over Bristol Bay, and lower 30s up along the Arctic coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here is showing a lot of IFR from the crest of the Brooks Range on out into the Arctic Ocean. VFR, southern Chukchi Sea, Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island. And into the interior, some spots of marginal VFR here in the south. Not too extensive, very extensive IFR here. central southern Bering Sea, much of the Aleutians, and across the southeast coast. For the afternoon, not much change here, kind of stationary status quo with the IFR, mostly along the coast over toward the border there. Marginal VFR up into the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country across the the Wrangell Mountain areas, but VFR Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, on out into Bristol Bay and northward there, right up to the Brooks Range. And for Monday morning, same IFR pattern here from the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, with VFR Upper Yukon Valley expanding as you head west-southwest here, right on into Bristol Bay, Norton Sound. Marginal VFR, St. Lawrence Island, IFR, Western Seward Peninsula and the Bering Strait. Look for the IFR here to build into the southeast interior areas, across the Wrangell Mountains, possibly up to North Wyandotte, down across all of the Panhandle, socked in with IFR, as well as much of the Gulf of Alaska, just barely reaching Kodiak Island, and a lot of IFR still out here over the southern Bering Sea to the Aleutians. And then for the afternoon, that actually expands a little bit there, over to the Fox Islands on the north side. Marginal VFR to the Alaska Peninsula, VFR here, much of the southwest coast, northern Bering Sea, fair ways offshore, but not quite to the Pribilofs, and marginal VFR east and southeast side of Kodiak Island up into Prince William Sound with the IFR here over the southeast interior, but VFR to the north and on out to the west. And for the Panhandle, marginal VFR, otherwise IFR along the coast and to the north. Anatuvik tomorrow, lowest conditions on the northern approach. Expect IFR there, otherwise marginal, becoming VFR on off to the south. Same forecast for Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow. Same forecast for rainy VFR. Windy looks good as well. Isabel, though, possibly becoming marginal or trending toward marginal, as will Mentasta, with a slight chance of an isolated thunderstorm or two. Same forecast for Tanita, even less of a chance of a thunderstorm, but the threat does exist, but it'll stay VFR. Portage will be VFR, and Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR, trending a little better into the afternoon. And for the freezing levels here, cold air coming southward with that strong northerly jet, 2,000 feet down to the Brooks Range, and the surface right on its heels there, but just south of the mountains, 8,000 feet, on back up across the northwest coast there. So quite a thermal gradient building there. 8,000 feet into the Gulf, 6,000 feet for the Panhandle, much of the Bering Sea, 8,000 feet for the far western Aleutians. Icing, kind of a widespread area of light to isolated moderate rime icing here, possible about 4,000 feet for the north slope, and mostly central eastern areas on out to the Arctic coast. And then a couple of bands here dropping southward, or developing southward here to the Alaska Range and up over the upper Yukon Valley. No icing threats out to the west or the remainder of the interior. Southern southeast coast, some light mixed icing possible there over the central and southern areas above about 7,000 feet. Jet stream, there's that upper level low sort of in place there northwest of Banks Island, but the northerly jet, 90 knots, coming southward. That'll continue to dig into the interior tomorrow night, and into Monday. And for the 9,000-foot wind flow chart, we've got northerlies up to 45 knots here coming into the western Arctic coast, across the western Brooks Range and the Chukchi Sea, diminishing as you head south here, 20 knots northern Bering, picking back up to 25 knots, 20 to 25 here, and then stronger winds with that low just south of the Alaska Peninsula there, 40 knotters right through that area, 10 to 15 here across southern Alaska. But another band coming around, westerlies 25 to 30, central and eastern interior areas, and westerlies 15 to 20 across the Panhandle. Light winds, central Aleutians, picking back up with that next storm farther to the west. Same pattern at 3,000 feet, a little bit lighter on the winds, 25 to 30 with that system. Light for the central Aleutians, northerlies up to maybe 35 to 40 knots along and southeast of the peninsula. And northerlies 10 to 15 or 10 to 20, pick up to 25 to 30 across the Chukchi Sea. Now, as far as turbulence goes, occasional moderate chop, especially for small aircraft, Brooks Range, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, and the eastern Tanana Valley.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The SUMI NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the SUMI NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out. And they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models, are computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a recent, comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy. We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. It was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. It was a major problem for the mid-Atlantic states, a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy. It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast, except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data.
Okay.
So we're going to put that over here. No satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look at, see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis for Saturday. Still iced in there, central eastern Arctic coast. Really not a lot of change from yesterday, and really not a whole lot of change expected for the next 4 or 5 days, except to continue to slowly and gradually retreat. Moving on to coastal water forecasts here. Westerly winds 15 to 20 knots south coast. West 20 on the north coast. Seas everywhere 5 to 6 feet. South 20, gusts 35 knots. A little windy up there in Lynn Canal tomorrow afternoon. South 15 for Stevens Passage. Light winds out of the south for Clarence Strait. And then for Monday, southeast of 10 there for Clarence Strait, and south 15, excuse me, for the south coast. Southwesterlies 10 to 15 knots, 5 to 6 foot seas for the remainder of the coastline. Small craft advisories continue for Lynn Canal, but we'll lose the gale force gusts. Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, southwest winds at 10 knots. Pretty good conditions tomorrow. Seas 2 feet in Prince William Sound, 3 feet in Cook Inlet. West 15, Kamishak Bay, pick up to about 20 knots here for the Barrens out of the west. Turn southwest here for the North Gulf Coast, all the way up there with seas at about 5 feet. And then the outlook for Monday, northerly winds for Cook Inlet. On the light side, though, at about 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. West 20 knots for Kamishak Bay, 6 foot seas. Small craft advisories now for the Barren Islands and the western North Gulf Coast for those southwest winds at 25. 20-knot southwesterlies for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Winds remain light and variable or east for Prince William Sound with seas at about 2 feet. Bristol Bay, light northeast winds pick up about 15 knots here on down the coastline on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Pacific side, different story. Northeast 30, seas 12 feet, falling back to 20 knots here towards Sitkinak. Then southwest 20 on the east side of Kodiak, 15 knots Shelikof Strait. And those pick up about to 20 knots for Monday, south 20 east side of Kodiak, southeast 15 here for the area southwest of Sitkinak to Castle Cape, on down to Cape Sarachev, northeast 20, northwest 15 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, Bristol Bay light northerlies. And for the Aleutians, small craft advisories still expected to come up here for the far western Aleutians from, say, Kiska Island on out to Shumi and Attu, and then 15-knot winds here west of Adak, but Adak and particularly Atka north 20 to 25 knots. Small craft advisories here for the Fox Islands, 20 to 30-knot winds out of the north and northeast, seas 5 to 13 feet. And lighter winds in store for Monday for that area, north to northeast 15 to 20, seas coming down 5 to 7 feet, 5 to 7 foot seas here with lighter winds for Adak and Atka, kind of under a high pressure ridge there with seas 4 to 7 feet, and then hold on to the small craft advisories out over the far western Aleutians at 25 knots again from the northeast and 9-foot seas. Southwest coast shaping up like this tomorrow. South of Nunivak Island, northwest 20, north 15, Pribilofs on up to St. Matthew Island, on up to St. Lawrence Island, part of the Bering Strait, northwest 10 for Norton Sound. And then for Monday, north 20 for Norton Sound, northeast 20 St. Lawrence Island. Small craft advisories here north of Nunivak Island for 25-knot winds. 15 for the Pribilofs, 20 knots from the northeast for St. Matthew Island. South of Nunivak Island there, north at 20. And for the central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, brisk wind advisories tomorrow. Strongest winds here on the east side. Sustained 30 knots with higher gusts. Again, gusts 50 miles an hour, mostly over the higher elevations, eastern Brooks Range. 25-knot winds back to possibly Wainwright, and then the west side northwest at 20, falling back to 15 there, Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, northwest 20 for Kotzebue Sound, and southeast Chukchi Sea. Those will turn north at 20 for Monday with northwest winds, 15 knots here for the western central coast, even the east side here, and then becomes westerly, so lighter winds coming up definitely for Monday there, much lighter winds in the forecast. And for tonight, again, winter storm warning 10 p.m. kicks in for the northeast Brooks Range as winds pick up. Snow expected to become kind of on the heavy side, especially for June. Could see 6 to 12 inches by Monday afternoon. That's when the winter storm warning is extended to 4 p.m. Monday afternoon. Winds gusting size 50 miles an hour. Heaviest wind and snow east of Adigan Pass, and winter weather advisory out for the extreme eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, nice here over the interior, just isolated showers, and that's a look at the weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.